Welcome down to the channel. Today's video is all about the driver takeaway. I've done a lot of videos in the past where I talk about the irons and the takeaway, and we always kind of do relate a lot of golf tips to irons, but we need a little bit more help on the big dog. We need to help figure out where this club needs to be on the takeaway, because a lot of people do ask me, Andy, when you're talking about this, does it apply to driver as well? So in essence, a lot of the time they do, but the driver does provide slightly different feels. So we're going to be talking through how the hands work, how the arms work, how the elbows work, how the shoulders work, how the hips work, all to get this club into the best possible position in your takeaway. So this right now, as you're looking at it, is the ideal position for a takeaway. And what are we looking at? So as I look at this driver head, the top leading edge here is parallel to my spine angle. And that's what I'm looking for, because the golf swing is a circle around the spine angle, around this axis, which is approximately 45 degrees. If I put the club down at address, then if I get the angle between the ground and the shaft of the club, it's approximately 45 degrees. So when I bring the golf club into this position, the takeaway, I want the club head here to be at approximately 45 degrees, because the very next position after that is going to be this 45-degree angle as we're going up. Now, a lot of golfers think that with the club face pointing ever so slightly down, which is what it is, if it's at that 45-degree angle as described, you're going to have a closed face, but you're not. A closed face is when the face is literally pointing straight down to the ground. An open face is when you see the top edge here, I would say at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, and especially anything worse than that. We can often get away with this position where it's just at 12 o'clock, where it's just pointing straight up. I'm not too worried about this position. It's when it goes more open, it becomes more of an issue. Okay, so we're going to try and make sure that we get into what I would say is the optimal position, but we allow a little bit of leeway. And at the end of the day, the most important thing about this is its consistency. If you're in that kind of 12 o'clock position with the club head consistently, then you're going to be more likely to consistently deliver the golf club back to the golf ball neutral and square. So we don't need to get overly hung up, but it's nice to have some checkpoints to work from. Now, how did I get to that position? Well, the key here is the relationship between the club, my hands, my arms, and my shoulders. Because as I bring this club into that position, I'm going to have a little bit of hip turn. I'm going to have my chest, my belly button here has moved about halfway as well between there and the takeaway. So my lower body's moved, my belly button's moved, my shoulders have moved, and also my hands have moved. So I've already started to hinge the wrist. I've already started to encourage the golf club to get higher than the hands at this point. And the reason we do that is because in the next angle, we get into that 45-degree position. If we turn into this takeaway, and I see this a lot, if we turn into the takeaway with the golf club below the hands, and then you start to hinge as you're going up, you often end up with a position that looks more like this, where the club gets what we call across the line, or the wrist angle starts to get a little bit cupped. So if we take the club on the wrong way, it ends up at the wrong position at the top, and therefore your transition is not going to be great either. It's going to be a difficult transition. So really important that we move the body together, okay? It's not about just using your shoulders or your arms or trying to keep this triangle. A lot of golfers try and keep the triangle and get loads of width. You see how straight my right arm is? Really unnecessary. Once you start to hinge this trail wrist, the elbow will follow as well, okay? So these two working, this sort of movement here works in tandem. My elbow will bend as my wrist will bend, and that will happen within that takeaway position. Now, a great way of drilling this is I would often say that's your club head there, so it's pointing out, just like my club head is there. So you see that? So I'm going to put my hand like that. And if I just move the club into the takeaway position, I've got the angle in my wrist and I've got the angle in my elbow. I would get to the top of the backswing and I'll pull the position from there straight down, and I'll get into that same position again as I'm coming back towards impact. So you start to feel the bending of the wrist and the flexing of the elbow. So what is happening now is that you're able to put the club up into the correct position. Now, one thing I want to talk about here is how we stabilize this face, how we control the face. Pete Cowen is a huge advocate and it's all about him really, but the equal opposite movement. The left hand and the right hand work equally against each other. Now, a lot of people say to me, oh, does that not just like really tighten and squeeze the club and make my grip pressure really tight? It could do if you do it tight, because really it's an equal opposite motion. So you could equally go at 5%, like, do you see that there? If I'm holding this super light, my hands are working equally opposite and the face is stable. Now I've got the hands really rigid, really strong on the club, and they're going equally opposite against each other still. So you don't have to squeeze it to make that position. And what Pete was telling me in a recent kind of catch up is that you've got different players that do different grip pressures. We all grew up with like, don't let the toothpaste squeeze out and don't hold it too firm. Or I was growing up with the one where imagine you've got a budgie in your hands and you don't want to strangle it. Very strange. But everyone is different. So people like Brooks, he actually grips it quite tight and really pulls it away. But by using that little bit of aggression, he's able to kind of generate that little bit of speed at the very start of the swing as well. Whereas other golfers just go a little bit softer and take it away a bit slower. Right, so I'm going to show you that takeaway. I'm going to put it into a golf shot. So I would often rehearse it, put it into position there, rehearse it, and feel my hands working equally opposite. I like to kind of really squeeze the club as I go back here, feel the body start to rotate, ball positions forward, everything's neutral as I'm expecting it, but I'm really working that golf club into the correct position. Away we go. Absolute ripper. So I hit that really, really well. But I do this a lot actually. I just do that little rehearsal on the takeaway because I actually get too steep. So I'm the opposite of what a lot of players do. I get too vertical here. The most common one that I see is they get too flat here. So you see how we go horizontal? I go too vertical. But if we get this takeaway into the perfect position, we get 45 degrees relative to those two positions that I've just shown you. And the results are so much more consistent because you're moving the golf club, you're moving the instrument really well, really early on in the golf swing. And if you're able to get a good takeaway, you've got more chance of getting a good halfway up. You've got a really good chance of being in a great position at the top, which therefore encourages a good position as you're coming down into impact. So I'm gonna hit one more. So rip this one away. So check and rip. There she goes. It's very enjoyable when you hit the driver out the center. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and I'll see you next time for some more gold.